ain't heard about us yet, well, you better know now because it's the place that it all goes down.
Hey guys, welcome back to another TWSN Soccer Sit-Down show. I'm joined here with Christian LeBlanc and Max Marrero. How are you guys doing today?
I'm good.
Doing well. Yeah.
All right, so let's get underway. We'll start with our first topic here today, and this is Manchester City. Do they need a striker right now? We saw last week when they fell to Tottenham 1-0. Part of the reason was they didn't really have a true number 9 out there. They put Gabriel Jesus out there at the end, I believe. But even then, I don't think he was playing at the 9. I think he was playing on the wing. Do they need to go out and buy a striker? Max, I'll give it to you first. I mean, maybe not Kane, but someone. Is it necessary if they want to win the league?
To answer your question quickly, yes, it is very necessary. I mean, it worked to an extent. Obviously, it worked very well last year towards the end of the season because, especially in the Champions League, the unpredictability by having a false 9, having De Bruyne, Phil Foden, even Riyad Mahrez and a few other players, slot into that false 9 as the game progressed. That really helped on the tactical side and helped City progress throughout that competition. But at the end of the day, the key to having a false 9 is having players up front that can score consistently. And in that Tottenham game, and I remember I brought this up in the show, and you guys were shocked when I said this. I thought City was going to lose. I knew City was going to lose that game, in part because a lot of these players coming into the City side that played against Tottenham, a lot of them were either not involved in the preseason because they're in the Euros, or also the players that were involved, for example, in the Community Shield, just looked like a shell of themselves because they were just out of form. So I figured, listen, and also City have a terrible record against Tottenham away. So I figured, okay, all that combined, I figured that was going to happen. But without going too much into the game specifically, I do think that a number 9 is needed. And I hope it's not Harry Kane personally, because I think 150 mil, albeit Harry Kane's an incredible player, I don't think he's worth 150 mil. I don't know if there's too many players out there in the world that are worth 150 mil. And I think it's better business if you can invest 75 mil in a year from now and possibly getting Erling Haaland off his release clause, who's going to be 22. He just turned 22, I believe, or maybe he's a year younger than that. And then working from there. And I just think, there's so many options to be had. I don't think City need to rush for a 100 mil rated striker now. Maybe get a depth add. I don't know who that'd be if you want to get someone in the immediate future. But I would wait one more year to get Haaland.
Yeah, it's a need. After the way we saw City perform at Spurs, I think it's more prevalent now because of, teams like United, Chelsea, and Liverpool playing at a high level right out of the gate. And, I mean, Max called it at the get-go. I mean, even Pep in the press game conference was talking about how he knew they were going to start a little slower because of all the things you just mentioned. And it's pretty staggering that, Gabriel Jesus, who Joe mentioned, came on in that game, and they, who's a natural number 9, and they actually played him on the left. I believe Ferran Torres was playing as a false 9 once he came on. So that it just shows that the team is not too, believing in Gabriel Jesus as a striker. And he is starting today against Norwich, which is going on as we speak. So we'll update you if we see anything from there. But, it's difficult to say whether or not Harry Kane is going to be the guy they get, because it seems like the only option. I mean, I don't know. I can't think of anybody in a lesser role in terms of money, because, of course, 150 million is the most you're going to pay for a striker at the moment. But I can't think of anybody else that's, in that 50 to 60 range that's available. And it's, we're down to the stretch of the transfer window, which ends in a couple, days. So I don't know if anybody else is available that's good enough to start for City. I don't see it happening. But of course, if Phil Foden, I think Phil Foden, if you want to talk about false 9s, maybe he's the best option of those at the club. I don't know how you feel about that, Max, but I mean, there's certainly a lot of guys you can plug in, and, Spurs, to be fair, set up pretty well. It wasn't the worst performance from City. They did create a lot of chances, but some of them just didn't put on target. But of course, Nuno set Spurs up in the way you have to set up against City, which is counterattack. And with Bergwijn, Lucas Moura, and Son, they were able to do that to a T and got the 1 goal. So I don't know. It's tough to say at the moment. I think Kane is your best option. I don't think you should be paying 150 million for him, especially after spending 100 million on Jack Grealish. But we'll see what happens. There's still some time left.
Jack Grealish to City was very bad business, in my opinion. I know this is kind of like off topic, but I mean, they got Jack Grealish for 100 million on a position that they already have a lot of players in. That was that really screamed of, we have money, so why not just spend the money? Because he doesn't fit a need. I mean, let's be honest here. I think Max can agree to this. I mean, that Jack Grealish deal, you'd probably rather spend that towards a striker than Jack Grealish.
I mean, I'd rather spend that on Lionel Messi. I mean, and honestly, there is a chance. I hate to say it. Listen, I have no doubt he'd probably prefer playing in Paris versus Manchester, especially at this point in his career. But I mean, there's no doubt that paying 150 mil for Jack Grealish hurt our chances of getting Messi. And I think anybody, I don't care who you are, who you support, would prefer Messi over Jack Grealish. So in that sense, I would agree.
Yeah, and back to the Kane situation with City, I think that City losing to Spurs, and I mean, I don't know how you looked at it, but I thought Spurs dominated the game, considering the fact that was their game plan. I mean, obviously they didn't control all possession, but I mean, I thought they really didn't allow City to get too many clear-cut chances. And I mean, when you play City, that's what you have to do. I think that kind of plays into Levy's hand, where it's like, hey, you guys need a striker. You're going to have to pony up to us. We don't have to pony up to you. We can beat you without Kane starting. We could beat you with just Son. You need Kane to beat us at this point. So I kind of think that plays into Levy's hand. Now it really all depends on whether or not Pep and City decide to spend that money on Kane. And who's the other options for them at this point? I mean, there's rumors that Lewandowski wants to leave Bayern. So
it's too late in the window. If this was, early August, maybe late July, we could talk about it. But it's so late in the window. That news broke too late for them to get him.
The only other player I could think of, and this is such a stretch because I don't even know if Villa would sell him and if City even want him, but maybe Ollie Watkins. Because I mean, Ings there, you don't necessarily need him at the 9 role, but I mean, again, if I'm City, I definitely prefer Kane. But if you don't want to spend that money, I guess he'd be my second choice to go after.
Well, I'll be honest with you guys. A part of the issue is a lot of, especially against Spurs, and this is not to take credit away from Nuno or Spurs. Spurs play phenomenally. A lot of it was, like I said, rusty form on the part of City, especially up front. And I think, we saw the tail end of last season as well. Ferran Torres in the Prem, specifically in those games leading up, once, for example, City were champions, the games they were playing meant nothing, and they were just kind of trying to build form or maintain form going into the Champions League final. Ferran Torres was starting all those games at number 9. He was even scoring. He scored arguably one of the goals of the season when he scored that back kick or that back. What was it? Like almost like a weird, kind of like a scorpion kick type goal. And the truth is, I think that if the guys can maintain form, then like especially a guy like Ferran Torres, then possibly it may not be necessary to go out and buy Harry Kane. Now I don't know how much of a stretch that is, but. Look, at this point, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. I think, it's pretty much Harry Kane or bust at this point of the transfer window. But I just hope that somehow there's a way around it. We can get Haaland. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the other thing I'm thinking. Like, do you got to just sell out for the season and get a cheaper version of Harry Kane? I mean, I guess they're not very comparable, but they're both very good goal scorers next year. So, I mean, I guess the only difference is you don't know if you're going to be able to get Haaland.
Right.
Well, I think the one thing to mention with Haaland is he was linked to Chelsea. I think that was the most viable option for him in the Premier League. Now that just is simply not going to happen because of Lukaku, of course. So there's less suitors, at least in England, for Haaland, which makes it a little bit easier to go get him because Chelsea can run up the money in terms of their business along with City. Those are the two big clubs in terms of spending in England. Of course, you still have Real Madrid and other teams.
Don't forget Bayern Munich, though, because if they lose,
Haaland
could be that guy to come in there, and they've already been linked with him a little bit. I mean, we know that Bayern Munich really likes to take players from rivals and just beat up on other teams in the Bundesliga. So,
and I don't. It's not. I mean, City are obviously still title challengers. We cannot say that after one game just because they lost to Spurs. They have slow starts. I remember the Leicester game. Last year City were. I don't remember what spot they were in, but everybody was not talking about them because they were, a little farther down the table in November, for say. And then next thing you know, February comes around and they're 6 points top. And nobody knows what hit them because City just string 6-7 wins together in the middle of the season and nobody can keep up with them. So I'm not worried about City. in terms of them, falling apart. This team is good enough. They've already scored against Norwich, which is given. Norwich is going to struggle this season. But, without a, consistent number 9, I think Jesus, the perspective of him is he's not consistent enough to, be the leading guy for a championship winning team. But he's still there, and I'm not going to say it's impossible because he's still pretty young. I don't know how old he is now, but they can still run the false 9 and be effective. They did it all last season, and against a majority of sides in the Premier League who don't defend particularly well, I think they'll be fine. And even against bigger sides, they should be okay. So it's not something that concerns me too much. They're probably going to win today, and we're not going to be in a completely different mindset with City, but it's certainly an issue. And I think teams like Chelsea, Liverpool, and Manchester United are more suited in that number 9 position than City, which is certainly concerning.
I mean, 2 things I'd like to also point out. City is a juggernaut. They just string off wins. Like, they could go on a run, and they legitimately could win 30 straight. They could lose their first 8 games and then just win the last.
They almost did that last year, right?
And yeah, exactly. And I don't think anyone would bat an eye and be like, "Oh, this is crazy." Like, that's just what City does. And number 2, City doesn't win at the new White Hart Lane. Like, they're 0 for 4 there. They legitimately they don't have a goal there either. Actually, they've yet to score at Spurs' new ground, and they've yet to win at Spurs' new ground. So, I mean, that's another thing I would say. Well, it's just not a place City plays well in, and maybe it's because Spurs are making a fortress there. Maybe I don't know what the reason is, but City doesn't play well there. But again, let's not overreact over one game. I would say they do need a striker because, I mean, every team needs a striker. But even if they don't, I wouldn't say that writes them off. But it does give the number 1 contenders little WWE AEW action with the CM Punk news. A little reference to that right there. But the number 1 contenders are Chelsea Football Club, and Chelsea do have a striker, and he's making his debut tomorrow in Romelu Lukaku. So let's touch on that real quick. Christian, I'll go to you. What are you expecting from Lukaku in his first game?
So in the back room, you surprised me, which you'll get to that. But considering how Arsenal struggled with Brentford and Ivan Toney, who is certainly not on the level of Romelu Lukaku, but is very strong up front, does that ability to, hold up play, and he really frustrated Ben White. I mean, Ben White was dominated, and many players in that Arsenal side struggled on that night. I expect very similar things. I think Aubameyang's unavailable. Lacazette is still unavailable with illness. I think COVID is what they both have, as Arsenal later announced. Martin Odegaard, who they just signed, I think at best is going to be off the bench. So you're probably going to see a very similar side to what we saw against Brentford. Probably a switch up at number 9. I think Balogun probably doesn't start. I would assume they'll probably, well, of course, Bukayo Saka will definitely start. So that changes things a little bit, but it's going to be a very similar Arsenal team, and it simply just was not good enough against Brentford. And when you're going against the European champions, a team looking to win the Premier League, who has a number 9 that's much better than Ivan Toney, it's going to be trouble. I think Lukaku is going to be dominant. He's going to frustrate Ben White, and I assume it'll probably be Pablo Mari. I don't think Gabriel is available. So they're missing a lot of players. It's not a good time for Arsenal at the moment. They would need – I think your only chance of really doing some damage is if, of course, the Emirates atmosphere is electric, and then you have guys like Emile Smith-Rowe, Nicolas Pepe, and Bukayo Saka being really influential in the final third. It's going to have to be something like that. I don't see it coming. I think, Chelsea will be pretty comfortable unless Arsenal, do what they always do, which is frustrate Chelsea when they come to the Emirates, which happened last season when they beat them in December, and that kind of got things started for Arsenal. That was, as soon as Emile Smith-Rowe came into that side, things were a little bit different. I don't see it coming. I think Chelsea will be pretty comfortable, probably something like 2-0. But Joe can mention his argument because it's certainly a little surprising on my end.
Yeah, I will, but I want to go to Max first. Max, what are your thoughts on Lukaku to Chelsea and their game against Arsenal tomorrow?
Well, with Lukaku, without Lukaku, I'd still favor Chelsea to win this game against a side that just lost to a team that's never been in the Premier League, their first game of the season. Obviously, we were just talking about it with City. You can't overreact in one game, but I think this is the exception. I mean, excuse me, you can't I don't care how bad or what state your club is in. There's no way that you can lose to a team that has never been in the Premier League in their history. Their first season in the top flight in 74 years, and they lose 2-0. That is shocking. That was a shock. I don't know if you guys watched the game. It wasn't just the scoreline that reflected how bad it was. It was just, if you watch the game, like minute to minute, they were getting dominated the entire match. They got outclassed entirely by a championship level side. That is shocking. But anyways, that's why I don't think Arsenal's going to win this game, even without Lukaku. But to answer your question about Lukaku, I would be interested to see if he starts. I think it's probably a little premature to start him. And if he does, look, I think the expectation is a goal, but I think we need to tamper expectations a little bit because this is his first game back in the Premier League in over 2 years. It's, again, if anybody's going to score on their debut, it's probably Romelu Lukaku, right? But it's kind of unfair for us to come in and expect the world, or for him to play out of his mind first game. So I think we should temper expectations, but we should still have expectations.
Yeah. So I think Arsenal's going to win tomorrow. I'll put that out there right now. Arsenal is going to win. They always beat Chelsea. I don't know what it is, but Arteta has the Ole juju that Ole has over Pep, because Arteta just knows how to beat Chelsea. And Arsenal just turns up in those games. I don't really know why, but they always play Chelsea well. And it's at the Emirates too. We've seen how teams play at home now that fans are back, and how away teams really have a tough time playing there. So I do think that's going to be a big factor in this game. But overall, I could see a big performance from Smith Rowe. Again, Arsenal turn up against Chelsea, and I think that's what's going to happen again. Lukaku, if he plays, which I expect him to play, I don't see why Tuchel wouldn't start him, to be honest with you. I mean, he's had, like a week or two of training now?
Yeah, it's been a week now, I think.
So he's had time to kind of get integrated with the squad. So I'm going to be intrigued to see how he goes up against Ben White, because Ben White looked god-awful on last Friday against Brentford. He just was in bad positions. He couldn't defend well. He looked like a terrible signing for Arsenal. I mean, obviously one game, let's not overreact, but Lukaku should be able to bully him. And Pablo Mari, if he's starting over Gabriel, that's scary, because Pablo Mari's he's a dreadful player. He should not be starting on a top 6 side.
Gabriel's out till mid-September with a knee injury, so he's not even remotely close to returning. It says on what I'm looking at that Aubameyang's not injured, so chance to be off the bench. I don't know.
Apparently, he had a huge fight with Arteta, him and Lacazette, or something along that lines. I've heard rumors of. Again, I don't know how true they are, but I don't think he's going to be. I don't think either of them are going to start again. I think that they're out again. I personally think it's disciplinary reasons, but I mean. Side note, Arteta needs to go for Arsenal. If you're an Arsenal fan, I don't understand how you can continue to be okay with Arteta as your manager, because what has he done to earn the support that he has? He won an FA Cup, okay? Let's be honest, the year's 2021. He won it in 2020. FA Cups mean jack now. They really don't mean anything. You need top 4 to attract players. People aren't going to come to his side because they won an FA Cup. They want to play Champions League football. Arsenal's not close to Champions League football, and that's a problem. That's a huge problem for them. They're not going to attract stars. They're not. And, I mean, I guess that's a great transition to our other topic of Arsenal spent – let me pull it up real quick out of my phone. In dollars, so this isn't pounds or euros, but they spent 161 million this summer, dollars. And their best signing was Martin Odegaard or Ben White. For that much money, that's a terrible window. Terrible window for them. They spent the most out of any Premier League club, yet they didn't really improve their team, right? I mean, would you say Arsenal really improved their team that much, Christian or Max?
I think the only place you could argue they improved, but it's also because of their own misdoing prior years, was getting Aaron Ramsdale as their new goalkeeper, because Bernd Leno was shocking over the weekend. He was shocking, to say the least. So I would say they improved with Ramsdale, and I would also argue that even though they had Odegaard for the second half of the year, that is an improvement considering how shambolic their midfield is without him. But I understand where you're getting at. I don't think it was a great window for them at all.
Yeah, I know. Joe is not high on Ramsdale. I don't know what his numbers.
He's been 2 straight clubs. When he gets there, they get relegated.
You go even deeper into his career, he's been relegated with every side he's been relegated, or every side he's been with has been relegated, including.
My question is, why was it $30 million? Why was it $30 million?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Like, they sold Emmy for what, 15? Emmy Martinez is a great keeper.
He's arguably the best keeper in the league.
Yeah, and they spent more money on a keeper that got relegated. Like, who is doing the business for them? How? And also, another side note, what did Ramsdale do to be wanted by all these teams and be so expensive? Like, again, he's been relegated every place he's been.
I think the only argument you can make, and I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here, is he is a goalkeeper that has played in the Premier League, albeit for relegated sides. So he has that experience. He understands what it's like to go against Premier League teams. And he provides a level of stability behind or in front of the goal. Whereas Bernd Leno, I think he's played himself out of the team. There's no way you can start him week in and week out after the way he's been performing, especially like if you look into the way that the season ended last year for them, not the winning streak, but I'm saying prior to that, leading up to the winning streak. And obviously that game against Brentford, he played it. There's no way you can start Bernd Leno week in and week out. I don't care how bad the defense is as a whole. That was a shocking performance by the goalkeeper. So I think you need to have a different facing goal. And yes, Emmy Martinez would make the most sense because even for Arsenal, he was great. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do. And they brought in a guy that's used to the Premier League, and hopefully you can help him out.
Yeah. And then, of course, besides Ramsdale, who, you can make an argument, I guess, for being, Leno's been shocking. Max is completely right there. So we'll see what Ramsdale does, because I would assume within the next 2 or 3 weeks he'll be in the side. I would think he definitely will not feature tomorrow. But other than that, Odegaard it's in a position where Emil Smith-Rowe has already locked it down. So I wonder what Arteta will do to put both of them in the team, if both can even fit. I think they did fit together last season in the back half.
Jack Grealish scored for City. I'm sorry, I had to say it. Finally.
Yeah, and then besides that, I personally think Lukaku is signing that could be beneficial to the side. I don't know if it will be right away, because of course during the Brentford game was tough for everyone, including him. But if you can match him up with Granit Xhaka or Thomas Partey, and let him travel a little forward. Of course, they just lost Joe Willock to a permanent to Newcastle, so there is a void in that attacking midfielder spot where they're the 8 who makes those deep runs. Besides that, though, Nuno Tavares is a signing that's not many people are understanding of it, because they got a left back when really they should be focused on getting a better right back, because they have too many guys at that position who are not good enough to be for a team that's looking to, or has the ambition to finish in the top 4. Hector Bellerin's not good enough. Callum Chambers isn't good enough. Cedric's not good enough. There's too many right backs at the club, and it's tough to see. I would say it's definitely there's a lot of questionable signings in the bunch, but some of them can be pretty good. I think Lukaku is a quality one. Ben White had a very tough game. We all know that. He had a pretty poor showing against Brentford. I'm not going to say it's a signing that's going to be terrible. I think paying too much, that they did pay too much for him. $50 million for Ben White is
Harry Maguire treatment. He's absolutely going to get the Harry Maguire treatment. Until he turns out to be elite, he's going to be abused for a while. Because Maguire, we remember he was bought for what, £80 million, and for the first 2 years, or at least a year and a half, people were just making fun of Maguire consistently, saying he's not a good player. He doesn't deserve to be at this level. Why is he on Manchester United? Why did he cost so much money? And now he's been playing very, very well recently. Everyone's just like, Maguire, in my opinion, is the best defender in the Prem right now. Virgil isn't only because of he was out for a year, and Ruben Diaz, he's only had a year to do it. I think we've seen a little bit more with Maguire over the years. So I just lean more Maguire. I'm a big Harry Maguire fan. I think he's a rock back there for United. But can Ben White even get to that level? I don't think so. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen that potential anywhere.
Until there's more, I think until there's more solidity in the Arsenal side, no, because he doesn't have a consistent, partner to him. I think Gabriel is the best center back besides Ben White at the club. If you want to argue which one's better, that's fine.
He's actually not that bad. I don't think Ben White's terrible. Not Ben White.
No.
Gabriel's not
No,
terrible.
I don't think he is either. But we haven't seen enough of him to get, put him in that same tier as, Maguire, Virgil. Of course not. He's definitely at least a tier below. But, once they get more solidity in the side, I think Ben White could shine. But then again, you have to ask the question, which Joe just mentioned, is Mikel Arteta the right guy at the job? I don't know. The problem is who else in the market is better than him? Antonio Conte, but is he going to be the guy that
Graham Potter. Some big team needs to get Graham Potter as soon as possible.
I think Graham Potter is a world class. I can't say world class because he hasn't won anything yet, but he is a class manager, and I think if you put him on a top side that has the creativity in the midfield, obviously the addition of Odegaard helps them out there. And Arsenal, it's weird to admit this, but they have some decent players up front. Just a lot of them have had rough patches of form. Nicolas Pepe is the most notable one. But if there's anybody that could get the best out of them and because he's a natural tactician, right? He's going to get the best out of his players. I mean, with Brighton, if they had a consistent goal scorer, they'd be among the highest. I don't know if you guys believe expected goals, but based on expected goals, they had one of the best expected goals in the season last year with not great players up front.
Leading the line. Neil Maupay.
Right. I mean, point is, if you give him even Aubameyang, you expect those expected goals to turn into goals. I'm sorry. Even with Aubameyang in shaky form, I think that manager can get the best out of his players. So, I don't know. I like that shot, though.
Yeah, Arteta, like I said earlier, I don't know what he's done to stay here. And the worst part is anytime he wins a couple games, it seems like his leash gets longer. Anytime he seems like he's on a short leash, he'll win a game and then boom, the board just backs him. And I just can't. I feel like Arsenal's going to be pushing for top 10 this year. Pushing for top 10, not top 4, top 6, top 10. After the last game, and look, they didn't have Aubameyang and Lacazette, but I also don't think those players want to be there. And I think that's a problem. I think that's bringing you back to the Harry Kane situation. That's why I think Spurs need to sell Harry Kane. You don't want a player who doesn't want to be there because they're just not going to perform well. So, I think Arsenal's in trouble. I think they really good on them for spending money, but when you don't spend money on the right players, is it even worth spending the money? I just don't know. City, I feel like is in the same situation with them too. City, the difference between City and Arsenal in the spending money category is that when City spend money, they always have more money to spend. Arsenal, we don't know how much more money they're going to have to spend because they just don't have the same funds as City. And Max, you know this as well as a City fan. I just don't know where Arsenal's looking for, but I agree with you, Christian, with Lukaku. I hope I pronounced that name right.
Yeah, Lukaku,
yeah. I think he's going to be a good player for Arsenal. He's probably has the highest upside in my opinion. And I think that was a very good signing. But Ben White for $64 million and Aaron Ramsdale for $30 million, it's not good business. But I guess let's turn it over to the French league real quick. Messi's going to make his debut next week, most likely. And what are you guys expecting out of that? Do you think Neymar plays then? How do you expect him to line up?
Go ahead.
Go first.
Okay. To answer your question, assuming Messi does play, I think we're going to see something along the lines of Messi coming off the bench. I don't expect him to start off the bat, but I think the formation is going to look similar to possibly Mbappe up front with Neymar and Messi out wide. And then I'm curious to see how that midfield is going to look if you have Marquinhos as the holding midfielder, because we haven't really seen Wijnaldum and those guys really too much yet. So I'm kind of curious to see how they line up in the midfield. They have so many players they can put in multiple positions. But to answer your question, I think Messi out wide on the right is probably the most realistic option. But I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah, I agree, Max. It's going to be a cameo off the bench, I would assume. He hasn't featured. He hasn't been in the squad yet. Of course, they've won 2 out of 2. Everybody believes that team's going to score or do enough to win the title by a miles. But I don't know, Joe, if Neymar even features. He hasn't been in the squad yet either. The only of the big 3 has been Mbappe, who scored yesterday in a 4-2 win. But Yeah, it's just probably going to be a cameo off the bench. Their midfield is really interesting because actually Wijnaldum has played in both games, I believe. He played 90 minutes yesterday. But they have so much flexibility. That's what Max mentioned. You have, Marco Verratti is a fantastic midfielder. You have Idrissa Gueye, Ander Herrera. You have Marquinhos, who can feature both as a center back and a defensive midfielder. I'm still missing guys, Leandro Paredes, even Julian Draxler. There's a lot of, flexibility in that midfield, which it's going to be Pochettino's, most important thing to figure out as we get closer to Champions League games, because of course, cool, winning the Liga is nice and all, but everybody knows that if they don't win the Champions League, it's a disappointing season. So, it's going to be his job to find out what his best 11 is. Of course, your back four is going to be interesting as well, because you have guys like Kimpembe. Hakimi's probably going to start 100% at the right back spot. You also have Sergio Ramos, who hasn't featured. So he's got a lot of things to figure out in the next couple weeks and months as we get closer to, group games for the Champions League. So it's going to be interesting to see. They still have Di Maria, which we didn't even mention him. This is how good that side is. It's the best side.
He hasn't started yet either.
Yeah. And, they still have Mauro Icardi, who they paid a ton for. There are so many guys in this side that are good enough to start for so many teams in Europe, and they're probably all coming off the bench. I mean, Donnarumma hasn't even been mentioned yet. Yeah. He's not even featured either. So this team is, it's so good. It's a team that's with, the best of them in the recent memory. And I think definitely the Champions League favorite. But hopefully we get to see Messi next week. Obviously he's been in training, so would not be surprised if he makes a bench appearance next Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Di Maria gets into this team, to be honest, because I think if you go your front three, you got to go Mbappe at like a false 9, just the 9 role, and then Neymar on the left and Messi on the right. But I mean, I got in a debate with our friend Aiden, actually. Aiden Miller, Christian. We were talking. He thinks Di Maria starts and you play Messi in the midfield. I don't see that. I can't see you playing.
I don't think Pochettino is going to pull that one out. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think Di Maria comes off the bench. And I think that's what a player to get off the bench, though. I mean, I think we've talked about it before, but like he is a super sub. He's like Jack Grealish coming off the bench. It's like you're going to be getting something special when he comes onto the pitch. But this team is legitimately a super team. It's like I don't even know what to compare it to, because maybe AC Milan in the early 2000s. Like this team needs to win every trophy that's possible for them, because they have a top 5 player in at least 6 positions. So the top 5 player in the world is playing for them in at least 6 positions on the pitch at all times. So, I mean, I hope we see Messi, but I also want to see Neymar with Messi again. I mean, they're going to be such a fun team to watch. Just overall, they could dominate in the midfield. They're going to have the best attack in the world. They have the best keeper in the world, one of the best keepers in the world. I mean, I don't know where you guys rate Donnarumma, but I mean,
I think he's the best in the world.
Yeah, certainly on form, no question about it.
And then you have Hakimi at right back, who is extremely good. Ramos, who's still pretty good.
Kimpembe.
Exactly. Marquinhos is going to probably play your DM, I assume, DM role. This team is legitimately insane. Like, could they go invincible this season at Liga?
I don't know, man. It just it's
like,
hard.
I feel like
to
we have to have this conversation, right? I mean, who's beating them? Because every team in Liga got worse. Other than that,
yeah.
I mean, Lille seems to have their number every single time they play.
Problem is, Lille's poor. I think they lost.
Yeah, that's
2 to start.
I thought they lost 4-0, right?
Yeah, Lille lost 4-0 to their old manager. Actually, it was Gautier from Nice. So I don't know, Joe. It's a fair question because it's possible, but they don't take Liga seriously.
That's the thing. They don't.
They could take it half-heartedly and still probably win 95%.
Let's be honest. Every year they should be like borderline invincible. I mean, we've never had this discussion with them because they never make it happen. So why would this year be the exception when they're obviously going to prioritize Champions League and other competitions?
Because their B team is so good. That's why.
I don't know.
Matt, you're going from either Ngoli from either Navas to Donnarumma or Donnarumma to Navas. You're probably saying it. Your keeper is probably either top 5 in the world either way. Your defense is still going to be good. You're bringing Donnarumma off the bench. I mean, I don't assume you're going to be dropping Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar all at the same time, which means you're still probably going to have at least 2.
Well, and even if you do, you still got Icardi and Di Maria.
I don't really think Icardi's that good, but
yeah I don't rate Icardi either.
I mean, I don't think he's as good as people talked about him in recent memory, but against Liga
Keane's better, but I mean that's another topic.
What'd you say?
I said Moise Keane is better, but
the guy that's on the Everton bench?
Oh, actually, side note, let's touch on Everton real quick because what is Rafa Benitez doing with James Rodriguez? Did you see what he said on his Twitch stream the other day? He said he doesn't know who Everton's playing this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that dynamic. I don't think he wants to be there at all.
No, but I don't know why Benitez is just dropping him from the squad because he's their best.
Well, he's got COVID right now.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like he's on like any ability to play anytime soon. Benitez doesn't seem like he wants him. Didn't he say he wants to sell him? They wanted to bring in Pereira for him.
Andres Pereira?
Yeah. They were linked with him for a little bit.
Who's now at Flamengo.
Yeah, now he's in Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, when you mention some of the weird signings and weird transfer windows, Everton's right up there with them. I mean, they signed Damari Gray, Andros Townsend. They've had some weird ones. They're actually winning against Leeds right now, so got a chance to win 2 out of 2. But, yeah, I mean, James certainly doesn't want to be there. As soon as Ancelotti left, he wanted to leave. But then again, who's going to – I mean, teams will want him, but how much money are you going to get for him?
If I'm Spurs, I'm taking him right now. Easy.
To start?
To start, yes. Spurs need a 10. I mean, I like Lucas at the 10, but I mean, Spurs need a creative player.
Yeah, yes, I agree. I think James, when he was on the pitch last season, was pretty influential.
Great. He was one of the reasons Everton was top of the table for a little bit.
No, he was great. He was incredible.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think he wants to. I think he doesn't want to play for Rafa. I mean, obviously he's sick and everything, but I just don't see it.
No.
Everton's also Sigurdsson's still not there, right?
Sigurdsson's still there, but
I don't know what's going on with Sigurdsson.
Yeah, we don't know what's going
on that, to be honest.
Yeah, he's not playing though, and he was pretty good last season, so they're missing him. I mean, DCL and Richarlison, I think, are pretty good partners. I mean, Richarlison had a great game last game. I just don't know what to expect from Everton this season because, like you said, Christian, they had a weird transfer window, and I don't really think it was a good one. But they still have quality players on the team. Like DCL and Richarlison, I think is one of the best strike partnerships out there. I really like those.
But they're very streaky. Like it really hinges on if the manager can have them play like they can play on a consistent basis. Then I would agree I would definitely agree that they're one of the better strike partnerships. But how often do we see them both playing incredibly well at the same time? Not really. So if we can see them do that on a consistent basis, then yeah, and that's on the manager. That's why they brought a new manager.
Each other so well because Richarlison's this fast player. He could get into space, and DCL is just a poacher. He's going to win headers. He's going to any rebound that comes out, he's going to put in. They complement each other so well. This year, their midfield's not that good. Their defense is all right. Pickford, I mean, depends on. Pickford's a weird goalie as well. I mean, he looked great in Euros, but there's other times where he looks like a T-Rex out there. He can't get his arms out.
Pickford for Everton and Pickford for England are two different players. It's the weirdest thing ever. So, I mean, it just depends. Again, can Rafa get the best out of those players? They don't have bad players. They have a decent side. Can Rafa get the best out of those players? That's the biggest question.
I don't know. Do you think they could push top 6?
No. Like the thing is, last season we thought of Everton so highly, and rightfully so. They had a fantastic start to the campaign, and they finished 10th. Like it was so bad down the stretch. I mean, they got embarrassed in the last game against City.
It's terrible. I mean, everyone gets embarrassed by City.
Sure, but it was a picturesque moment to end their season because started so well and ended so terribly. So I think you're going to get very similar things from them. I think they're finishing around 10th. I don't think they push 6th. I think This side is
Conference League.
inconsistent.
Maybe they push Conference League, but maybe.
Possibly.
I just don't know because they have no expectations this season. Last season they had a lot of expectations with Carlo Ancelotti, James coming in. This season, everyone just thinks they might finish 14th. They have such a bad team, and they have a chance to take six out of 6 points.
Well, let me tell you guys something. If Everton can find themselves in a Europa Conference League spot, that's a good season for Everton. I think it's a good season for Everton.
Absolutely.
I don't think their fans are really expecting that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. But on Europa Conference League, I guess we should talk about Spurs losing to I don't. Let me see if I can get Pacos. I'm gonna pronounce this name right. Pacos de for I can't say that name. I don't know Portuguese. Ferreira. I'm just call him Pacos. So Pacos was able to beat Spurs in Portugal the other day. And what are you guys' thoughts on it? Because I have my own thoughts on it, but I'd like to hear what you guys think first.
Well, in the words of Giorgio Chiellini, it is the history of the Tottenham. It's the history of the Tottenham. That's what happens, right? They go and beat City the first game of the season, and then they lose to this club that we don't even know how to pronounce their name. So I don't know. I mean, is the question depth? I didn't watch the game personally. Did Nuno get it wrong tactically? I mean, I don't know, Joe. You know better than I do.
So I did not watch the game considering there was no way to stream it in the United States. So I had to watch I had to figure out, like I was listening to on the radio and stuff, and I watched some of the highlights. But overall, it just seemed like the team couldn't break down Pacos. And I mean, I'm not too concerned about it because Spurs played youth, like straight up youth. Like Dane Scarlett was at 9. Niall John was playing in there.
Yep.
Brian Heel was playing as well. Cameron Carter-Vickers was playing, who was awful. He was at fault for the goal. I mean, the only first-team player you could really argue that was playing was Romero. And I'm not going to say he had a good game because he didn't. You could argue he was at fault for the goal too. He had one kind of gaff too where he messed up clearing a ball and the Pacos player had a chance to score. But that was his first game, and it wasn't with starters, so I'm not going to overreact about that. But overall, I thought Spurs don't have anyone to create. That was my biggest takeaway from the team because they couldn't break him down at all. They had no shots on target. If you look at the stats, they didn't threaten the goalkeeper once. So Spurs need a 10 badly. That's why I brought up earlier. James as Spurs wouldn't be a bad idea at all. And Christian, I don't know if you got to see anything of the game or any.
I think I saw the highlight, and it was kind of just, a quality finish from the guy, but errors. But, yeah, I just looked at the team. It's not like, it was the best 11 for Spurs. Then there's a conversation for being very concerned. I don't know when the second leg is. You might know better than me. Could be next week or 2 weeks.
Could be next week. Could be in March. It's the Conference League. It's basically whenever these people can get together and play. It's a joke of a league, let's be honest.
I mean, I mentioned to you, and maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but honestly, getting eliminated from this competition wouldn't be the worst thing for Spurs.
I kind of agree because here's where I go back.
I actually think that's a really good take.
Like, what's the purpose of playing this league? Because it really means jack. I mean, if Spurs win the Conference League, cool, I guess, but I mean, who cares? It's the Conference League. However, on the other side of things, I kind of want Spurs to stay in it because you get the youth some playing time, get them some minutes. And
again, you're going to be playing the youth. It's just if they can get results, it's a win-win. But if not, then at least Spurs can focus on more important competitions.
Exactly. That's why I don't really care. Like
I wouldn't care either.
Cool. If they somehow make a comeback, oh, that's cool. I mean, more playing time for Dane Scarlett, Niall John, and Brian Heel. But if they don't, okay, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And that's just my take. I mean, what were you saying, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, and I think like for us as fans, I mean, you obviously care about the Champions League, you care about the Europa League, not in the same light, and nobody cares about the Conference League. I wouldn't blame you for not caring about it because
it wasn't even carried in the United States. There was no way to watch the game in the United States. Even if you had Paramount, they said we're not going to stream this game. They didn't even broadcast it. There was literally no American way to watch the game. That's how much of a joke this competition is. It's a joke of a competition.
But
listen to
would
the game.
winning it be big for Tottenham though?
No.
I mean,
no
like,
one
and I don't mean to
cares.
be facetious, but I'm saying like they break the trophyless curse.
Here's the only reason I would say it would be big because the young guys get to win it, and that would be cool.
And you do know that if they make the final, like I think you would agree, they're going to play their first team. Like especially in the latter half of that competition, they're going to, because at that point they're going to be like, okay, we actually have a chance to win this. Why not? You know.
I hope not, because the first team doesn't know how to win big games. So I trust.
I mean, there's a couple big sides in that.
I'll trust Dane Scarlett leading the line before I trust Harry Kane leading the line in a championship game. Mr. I can't get a touch in the box against Italy in 90 minutes in the Euro final. Mr. does nothing against Liverpool in the Champions League final. Mr. makes no effort against Manchester City in the Carabao Cup final. Name one big game performance he's had. Mr. I missed a sitter to send first through.
The only quote unquote big game performance I can think of is when he missed the penalty against Denmark and then tapped it in.
Again,
man,
he needs to learn how to be involved in a big game, because, like I said, I trust Son more in a big game than him. And I mean, I guess we saw
because he's performed in big games consistently.
Yeah, he knows how to beat City. I do find it funny. Total side note. Since Pep has called Spurs the Harry Kane team, Son has just absolutely went crazy against City.
Son is one of the players. Him and Salah are probably the two players that I'm the most scared to play in the league. And Son is, I don't know why, like, he's world class. That guy is incredible.
Yeah, that's right, Christian. You heard that? Son is world class.
I was saying he was borderline world class. That is not something no. Don't put that on me. He is very good. I'm in the same boat as Max. We saw what he did against City. I mean, I can't say enough about Son.
Yeah, he's great, man. He's great. But that'll do it for us today. Thank you guys for tuning in. For Joe Cammarota, Christian DeBlock, Max Marrero, and TWSN as a whole, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.
Get up, let me begin.